Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into one of the most culturally significant stories of the 20th century, George Orwell's classic, 1984. Now, we aren't just here to summarize a story for you. We're going to look at this as a fascinating case study in how absolute, totalitarian power systematically dismantles reality itself. And to do that, we'll be using the tragic psychological timeline of our main character, Winston Smith, as our guide. It was a bright, cold day in April, and the clocks were striking 13. Let's just pause on that iconic opening sentence. Instantly, Orwell drops us into the deeply unsettling, strictly regulated world of Airstrip 1, what used to be London. Right from the jump, something is fundamentally off. Clock striking 13? It establishes this unnatural, military precision that dictates absolutely everything. Our protagonist, Winston Smith, slips into Victory Mansions just to escape a vile wind, and he's greeted by the smell of boiled cabbage and old rag mats. It is a brilliant sensory introduction to a totally bleak, hyper-controlled existence. So picture this. How do you actually navigate daily life, let alone rebel, when you are never, ever truly alone? In Oceania, every sound you make above a very low whisper is picked up. Every movement is scrutinized by this unblinking instrument called the telescreen. It's essentially a dull, mirror-like plaque on the wall that receives and transmits at the exact same time. And the scariest part? You never know when the thought police are plugged into your specific wire. Survival means living out of a habit that eventually becomes instinct, just assuming that absolutely everything you do is being watched.
Okay, let's get into Section 1, the world of Big Brother.
Entering this world, you're immediately hit by a landscape of decaying 19th century houses patched up with cardboard. But that decay is completely masked by these terrifyingly huge posters of a ruggedly handsome man. The caption always reads the same thing: Big Brother is watching you. And you have to consider the sheer audacity of the massive slogan standing right alongside them. War is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. I mean, talk about a mind-bender, right? These are the three core tenets of the party, carved right into the glittering white concrete of the Ministry of Truth. By blasting these absolute contradictions everywhere, the party is deliberately forcing its citizens to accept totally illogical statements as solid facts. It's not just propaganda, it is an active assault on the mind's ability to reason. Which brings us to the ultimate offense: thought crime. It is the essential crime that contains all others in itself. Winston actually commits this vaporizable offense just by ducking out of the telescreen's view, opening up this peculiarly beautiful, creamy papered book he bought in a slummy junk shop, and starting a diary. Think about that. He doesn't even need to physically act out against the state. The mere act of holding an unspoken, anti-party belief or doubt in his mind means that inevitably the thought police are going to come for him in the night. Moving on to Section 2, rewriting the past. Let's look at the actual mechanics of Winston's 9-to-5 job at the Ministry of Truth, because here, history isn't remembered, it is continuously manufactured. The process brilliantly illustrates these chillingly mundane, bureaucratic steps of literally changing the past. Winston gets these small pneumatic tubes with instructions to correct old issues of the times. He alters the article to match whatever the party's current reality happens to be today. Maybe he changes a promised chocolate ration increase into a reduction, or he scrubs the name of someone who's just been vaporized. Then, the original document is dropped into a slip in the wall called a memory hole, where it's devoured by flames. Day by day, minute by minute, they literally erase people, promises, and past alliances from existence. Poof, gone. But how do you make a system like that actually function without everyone going completely crazy? Well, the party relies on an incredible psychological tool: doublethink. It's the power of holding two perfectly contradictory beliefs in your mind at the exact same time and accepting both of them. Party members like Winston know they are actively faking history, obviously, but through a conscious act of self-hypnosis, they have to genuinely believe the new lies they literally just created. They must essentially forget the act of forgetting. And working right alongside doublethink is their linguistic weapon, newspeak. Winston's colleague, Syme, is an expert on this. He points out that while most normal languages expand, Newspeak is the only language in the world whose vocabulary gets smaller every single year. The ultimate goal here is to completely narrow the range of human thought. By destroying words, like stripping away all the secondary meanings from a word like freedom, the party ensures that the very concept of rebellion becomes literally unthinkable. Why? Because the words you need to express it will simply no longer exist.
Section 3, the spark of rebellion. Now, despite all these massive controls, Winston hits an internal breaking point. His memory, his logic, his basic humanity, they all start pushing back against this absolute conformity. He starts this illicit, highly secretive romance with a coworker named Julia, and it acts as his most profound gesture of political defiance. This internal tension physically manifests in that diary of his. In a state of sheer panic, almost like a trance, Winston's pen just slides over the paper, printing these words in large, neat capitals over and over again. Down with Big Brother. He feels a twinge of absolute, visceral terror when he does this, because he knows exactly what it means. Whether he writes it down or stops himself, it makes no difference. By allowing his thoughts to reach this point at all, his fate is totally sealed. You see, Winston's rebellion is fueled by a really stark contrast. You have the party's myth, constantly broadcast 24/7 on the telescreens, showing this glittering, antiseptic utopia of steel and concrete, endless victories, and fabulous statistics about more wealth and more food. But the actual, daily reality for Winston and the working-class proles, it is entirely different. It's decaying 19th century cities, gritty soap, blocked drain pipes, the endless, inescapable smell of boiled cabbage, and the constant threat of rocket bombs falling right out of the sky. Section 4. The illusion of hope. Driven by this miserable reality and their secret love for each other, Winston and Julia take a massive risk. They mistakenly believe they can actively fight back by joining this legendary underground resistance network called the Brotherhood. Winston puts his tragic, completely misplaced faith in an inner party member named O'Brien. They share a fleeting glance during the frantic 2 minutes hate, and Winston just becomes utterly convinced O'Brien is secretly on his side. I mean, O'Brien even shares forbidden literature with them. Winston holds on to this cryptic phrase, "We shall meet in the place where there is no darkness," genuinely believing it signifies some imagined future of freedom. But in reality, O'Brien is a loyal, calculated orchestrator of their downfall. And the climax of all that hope shatters in an instant. While they're hiding out in the seemingly safe, old-fashioned room above a junk shop rented from a guy named Mr. Charrington, they hear an iron voice suddenly echo this chilling phrase, "You are the dead." It turns out there was a hidden telescreen behind a picture on the wall that had been watching them the entire time. Mr. Charrington? Yeah, he was a member of the Thought Police. They had never been safe, not for a single second. Which brings us to Section 5, Inside Room 101. Here is where we witness the clinical, hyper-bureaucratic horror of Winston's capture inside the windowless Ministry of Love. The party doesn't just want to execute him, they need to break his mind completely before they erase him. And the logic behind this psychological torture is profound. O'Brien, acting as Winston's torturer, uses immense physical pain, but not just to extract some fake confession. He uses a dial controlling pure agony to force Winston to genuinely surrender his reliance on basic arithmetic and common sense. Winston desperately argues that objective reality exists, that 2 + 2 makes 4. But O'Brien systematically breaks him down until Winston truly, genuinely sees 5 fingers instead of 4 when O'Brien holds him up. The party demands total control over reality itself. And this brings us to O'Brien's overarching, totally chilling philosophy. The party is entirely distinct from totalitarians of the past. They do not seek power so they can eventually build a utopia or safeguard some revolution. No, they seek power entirely for its own sake. O'Brien explains that power is in inflicting pain and humiliation, in tearing human minds to pieces. Theirs is a world founded on hatred, fueled by fear, and the constant, intoxicating thrill of triumph over a helpless enemy. Imagine a boot stamping on a human face, forever. Now, despite accepting that 2 and 2 make 5, Winston manages to hold on to one last, tiny fragment of his humanity, his love for Julia. So to break this, O'Brien takes Winston to Room 101. And what's in Room 101? Simply the worst thing in the world. For Winston, this is his ultimate, paralyzing, completely unendurable phobia, a wire cage divided into compartments, filled with huge, hungry rats, specially fitted to be strapped directly to his face. In a state of absolute, blind panic to escape this unimaginable terror, Winston finally breaks. He screams for them to do it to Julia instead. And the tragedy is, he truly means it. In that exact moment, his spirit shatters. Section 6. The Final Surrender. We follow a hollowed-out, physically ruined Winston back into the outside world. He's sitting in the Chestnut Tree Cafe, drinking victory gin, just listening to the telescreen. His mind has been completely reprogrammed. He has zero independent thought left. He only accepts whatever the telescreen dictates as the absolute truth. And the explainer reaches its devastating conclusion with the story's final moment. Looking up at the massive portrait of Big Brother, Winston doesn't feel hatred anymore. The final, indispensable healing change has taken place in him. He willingly relinquishes the absolute last shred of his humanity, his resistance, and his grasp on objective reality. He truly, deeply embraces his oppressor. He loved Big Brother. The party has won completely. So as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a final provocative thought. Orwell's masterpiece isn't just a grim story, it's a structural breakdown of psychological control. What actually happens when the truth exists entirely in the minds of the people who have the absolute power to erase it? It's a lingering question on the fragility of memory and language that keeps Orwell's warning incredibly relevant even today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Keep asking questions and keep exploring the truth.